You look like you just got hit between the eyes with an idea. Man, maybe that's why they call it an idea, man. 'Cause your eyes get all wide, man. No, I'm sorry. That was dumb. Forgive me.
Dude,
What?
I don't know why, but every time I go into the kitchen, I can't help but freaking grab a cracker. Like they just call to me. Just can't help
Man.
myself.
See that for me, it's the apple juice in the fridge. Like
Oh yeah.
yeah. 'Cause what you're talking about is impulses here.
Oh right, it's totally an impulse
Yeah,
to
'cause
grab the cracker.
to just grab the crack, grab the cookie, grab the drink.
Yes.
You know? Oh yeah, man, absolutely. I'm not even thirsty.
Always.
I'm not even thirsty. I'm just kind of like I'll be sitting there, maybe playing some video games or
Yeah.
watching TV, and I'll just get up and wander into the kitchen and grab a sip off the old fucking drink and put it right back in the fridge. Good to go.
My brain hasn't even turned on to the knowledge that I've,
No.
suddenly I've awoken to the fact that I'm, in the shitter.
Yeah. Oh man, like when I first tried to quit smoking, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was playing video games straight up, like immersed in video games, and the next thing I knew, I shit you not, I was lighting a cigarette on the front porch. And I was like, whoa! It was weird. It was
Yeah.
like time travel,
Mhm.
but like because that impulse was like backed by like chemical addiction, like that thing was like a super powered impulse, man.
Man,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, there's definitely
Wild.
things like caffeine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Caffeine. Oh,
Yeah.
as I sip on my tea.
That's right. That's how it goes. You know, like the interesting thing, in my opinion, about impulses
Mm.
is actually more on like impulse control. You know, because the
Yeah.
first step is understanding what impulses are.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, because
and
what we were just talking about is like impulses manifesting without our like conscious
Yeah.
realization.
yeah, because like impulses can be super benign. Like you have an itch, your impulse is to scratch.
Yeah, the itch
You know?
itself is the impulse, like a physical
Well-
manifestation of the itch.
Well, I mean, like.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just can be psychosomatic. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just like a hair on your leg crosses another hair on your leg, and you move just right, and it goes, and it just like rubs your skin just a little bit. You're like, oh, itchy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I mean, like, there's actual reasons why we itch as well. Like
Mhm.
dermatitis or different kinds of medical issues that can cause itching. But that's beside the point.
And
My
maybe
whole-
some like biological training, like there might be a bug on me.
Sure.
Get
If
it off
you're
me.
I mean, or I guess the opposite side of that would be places with a whole bunch of bugs. Generally, people kind of they kind of, because they've been raised where there's a lot of bugs, the bugs don't bother them nearly as much. They have a bug right on their face crawling across their fucking eyeball. And they're totally chill. It's
I
like, whatever.
cannot.
This is life. This is, there's lots of bugs around here. We've stopped fighting them. They outnumber us. We kill them in droves. They keep on coming. They care not. The bugs win.
They are the Zog.
Yeah. Oh man.
How about with relationships? It can be very impulsive in our relationships.
Interesting. I will hit that. So
I will hit that.
I will hit that. So I think impulses are really interesting, right?
Yeah.
So you have like these really basic with really basic ones like itching and such, and then you have these more complex ones that are like like a learned behavior that you've practiced over time, whether you like it or not. Any behavior that we do over and over again becomes practiced and becomes ingrained.
Yeah.
And then through that action becomes an impulsive action. See? So like let's, for instance, when I was much younger, I was much more prone to people saying things and then me taking them any way that I could take them to make it a personal insult, so that I could I could justify getting angry. See? So once I learned, once that became an inset kind of cycle, if you will, then that actually became a thing that I never thought about it again. I mean, I did eventually, but it became a thing that where it was just an impulsive thing. Anytime that somebody said something to me and I wanted to, I would just turn it into a personal insult against me and use that as an excuse to get angry. So I was
Yeah.
impulsively getting angry at people. See?
And it's funny that that rationalization is
Because
something that
we fast track it. Sorry.
Yeah.
That actually, go ahead.
that rationalization is something that happened, like or it not happens, but is realized post fact. Like
Correct.
in the moment, it was like
Yeah, I didn't
impulse,
think about that. It wasn't like, oh, I'm
instantaneous.
going to make this
Yeah.
plan that sounds kind of dastardly so that I can enable my own anger and attack people. But I mean, like, ultimately speaking, like, you're right.
Yeah.
This is a situation in which a situation in which I didn't realize
Yeah.
until much later in my life when I started, moving forward and realizing that, hey, if I want to become a better person, I got to stop. I got to disable some of these bad habits that I have enabled in my life. I actually go back through and rework them and be like, okay, well, I found that like I would impulse like people would say something and then I would be like, say something mean automatically. Like, whoa, like that's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. Like,
Yeah.
I need to correct that. So I had to just like look at that. Like, okay, well, what is this? And like really have an honest.
What's the root?
Yeah, exactly. Like have an honest conversation with myself. Like, bud,
Mhm.
like I don't like this about me. Let's go ahead and restructure this. So it was actually the impulsive thing that once you recognize it, you can actually start rooting these things out and realizing, hey, is this a good thing that is impulsive, or is this a bad impulsive? You know, like a good impulse. Let's because we just talked about some bad impulses. Let's talk about a good impulse. A good impulse would be someone. A good impulse is when you cough, you cover your mouth.
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah.
That's an impulse. Like
protect us from your germs.
Yeah,
please.
exactly. Once it's not necessarily supernatural at first. Oh, that sounded weird. Like I meant like supernatural, not like supernatural. But like that's funny.
Extra
It's not
normative?
extra. It's not like automatic. Like babies don't come out of the womb knowing to cover their mouth when they sneeze or cough.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's something that we teach ourselves and learn over time. But once we've learned it, it is impulsive. You don't think, oh, here comes a sneeze. I better lift my hand and put it into my face to block outgoing particles. We don't think all that.
Yeah, more
once
like-
we've had that thought and we've enabled that thought and we've practiced that.
My thought is more like, oh no, and then hachoo.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, something's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So I mean, like, so
Oh, another good impulse. Arguably good in my
Sure.
case would be like you're walking by a homeless man and he's got a cup and you're like, I have change in my pocket. Bing, into the cup.
Sure.
That was an
sure.
impulse. You didn't like set out for the day going to.
I'm gonna look for a homeless man to deposit money inside of his cup.
You're just kind of like happen by this guy, or maybe you're driving, and like driving, there's a lot of impulses happening all the time, constantly.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
real easy to just be like, oh, the light's turning green, quick, give him money. You know, whether you advocate for that or not,
Sure.
that's an impulse that we all.
Yeah. So I mean, the
experience.
interesting thing is once we can start like realizing when we're being impulsive, because it's a specific feeling.
Mhm.
You know, it's a and once you start like classifying what that means for yourself and having a hard talk with yourself, like, hey man, like what are some of my bad impulses? Also give yourself some credit and be like, what are some of my good impulses? Don't just be negative Nancy to yourself. It's good to be like, I have some faults, but I have some strengths. Like that doesn't mean that I should work any less on my strengths or any more on it. It means that these things should be within equal grasp of each other, right? Like you don't want, like you can't really just be, I mean, you physically can, you actually can. I was gonna say, you can't really just be a horrible person and then go and give a bunch of money to charities. And then I was like, oh, actually, you totally can.
You totally can.
That's totally a viable thing that people do.
That's something that
So,
people
oh,
do
darn
often.
it. There goes my morals thinking for a second.
Yeah.
Or my,
yeah.
what do you call that? Idealistic thinking.
Morals by money.
Oh, jeez. So I guess like my point is, to move past that silliness for 1 second is more like, when we have these talks with ourselves, it's very easy to be very negative and to focus on the negative, but also it's important to focus on positive stuff while we're doing work on the negative.
Oh
And
man.
and also when we're feeling really good, to also recognize that we're feeling really good because of all this work we did
Uh-huh.
on all this negative stuff that didn't feel so good.
Yeah.
So and then that gives us more incentive to work on the harder stuff.
Yeah, dude, I scold myself quite often,
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah, I mean,
That's a great one. I actually want to talk more about that if you don't mind, not to interrupt you.
what's scolding ourselves?
Yeah, because I was for a very long time, I was very impulsively mean to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I asked myself, "Hey, man, like, would I say the same things that I say to me to
Mm-hmm.
other people?" And I was like, would I? And I thought to myself, like, well, what? Oh, I'm playing video games and I make a mistake and my character dies, and I'm like, oh, you fucking idiot.
Fucking idiot.
Yeah, and I think to myself, like if I was sitting in a room with my homie and he was playing a video game and he died, would I go, you fucking idiot, get good, you nerd? The answer is no, I wouldn't. That's horrifying. So I have to realize that I gotta not do that to me. Sorry, I want to go back for just a second. We were talking about like
Scolding ourselves, right?
yeah, scolding ourselves and like and impulsively being mean to ourselves
Yeah.
because we're kind of subjected.
Impulsively being negative in general. It's
There
really
we
easy
go.
to fall into that.
Yes, we all know people who when you wander up to them, it's always a great day, and we know folks that when you wander up to them, it's always a horrible day, and it really and so we can realize how this manifests outside of ourselves when we have ourselves a more positive outlook or a more negative outlook, because that is directly represented by our impulses. And are we impulsively being positive or are we impulsively being negative? Like what are our natural inclinations, or I'm sorry, not natural, what are our current inclinations in this area? You see?
Yeah, and it often has to do with whether we've practiced, being.
You
It's kinda
have to
like
practice.
when you were talking about, forming how the impulse happens, how it forms is like you start with this active process where you're consciously performing the steps in the process, and then over time it becomes second nature, and that's really what second nature is that it's
it becomes almost, I hate to use the word, but like it almost becomes like muscle memory, but like inside of you, like an internal muscle memory, if you will.
The muscle of the brain.
Yeah, muscle of the brain.
The muscle of the brain.
In the muscle of the brain.
Yeah. No, I mean, and like that's unconscious practice, but then we can have conscious practice to form these like good impulses.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing is like, there's no, like, you don't, there, it's a gradual build.
Mm-hmm.
And in the current era, almost everything around us is push button instant gratification, which just proliferates this impulse. Impulse. I don't know what you would call it. This impulsivity, maybe? I don't know. I guess my point is that
culture of impulsivity.
The culture of impulsivity, which is the clickbait, which is the meme society. You know what I mean? With all of these different like deals where we have this
push button society.
Thank you. Awesome. Perfect. Got it. So like by living in it, because of the fact that we can pull a miniature supercomputer out of our pocket,
mm-hmm.
and we can.
I love my miniature supercomputer.
Dude, our pocket-sized supercomputer is amazing. Dude. Touch screen. Get out of here. Google? Biometric reads and shit.
I am the biggest fan of Google, our technological super overlord.
All hail Google. So I guess so we have this device that we can pull out of our trouser pocket, put it in our hand, and we can push a couple of buttons, and we can have this thing that will make us feel any way that we choose to feel in the moment. You could watch a cat video. You'd be like, oh man, I'm having a shitty day. I'm gonna watch this cat. bat around a piece of yarn. And you're like, wow,
I'd
that
like to
makes me feel great.
I'd like to repeat what you just said for clarity's sake, just that because it's such a poignant thing to me that the phones provide emotions. We're like, I want, and you don't say this consciously,
Yeah, yeah.
but you're like impulsively, impulse for sadness. Oh, there it is. And you know, actually, maybe we don't really go searching for it, really, is it? We're like looking at it and it's like, oh, happy, oh, sad, oh, angry, you know.
You're so right. So okay, so like there's this. Okay, so I'm gonna switch gears, but only just to get to this point faster because it's awesome. You
Yeah.
made a great point. And so check this. Like you have pregnant women, right? And pregnant women have these cravings
Mhm.
that are absolutely like
Impulses?
impulsive. Like they have these impulses like, oh man, I need pickles and ice cream. And they don't really they don't consciously know that their body is building a spleen and the chemicals found in pickles and ice cream are the base building blocks that they need.
Like, how do we know that?
Totally.
It's amazing.
And so like she's busy building this being inside of her and you're like, oh, I want pickles and ice cream and the rest of us are like, dude, this lady's crazy. But she's actually like this supercomputer deciding what chunks of chemicals their body needs. So what appears to be like really bizarro world impulses is actually this really cool kind of autonomic response to this thing, right?
Autonomic, that is a big word there.
Ooh, I sit around and just read the dictionary for fun sometimes. I'm like, get wrecked, nerd. To circle it back to the point you were making is like we have this thing where it's not just that these impulses are hitting on these really these lizard brain, these really guttural, really old parts of our brain,
the base nature
of
human instinct.
Know, like the lady can't know. The lady can't know. Hey, today I'm forming. Today my body is low on something that pickles contain. It's not like she went over there and read all the ingredients of pickles and then knows their base components on a scientific scale and then knows that she needs 0.7 grams of like biotin creatine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
she doesn't know. I mean, not saying that she can't. I'm just saying that ultimately speaking, the likelihood that she knows precisely what her body needs in that exact time on a conscious level, no, it's this much lower part of her primal self that has these cravings for these base minerals, and so it's like this thing where it's like some impulses are beyond just good impulses. They are life-giving impulses.
Oh yeah, like necessary impulses.
Yeah, like super deep, more like primal impulses.
I just keep thinking of situational impulses.
Exactly. No, but okay, so now I can talk about primal impulses, right? So you primal impulses, bro, to fuck.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, man. To procreate. Let's be more real here. The drive to procreate, which manifests into the desire to fuck,
which isn't something that is universal across the human.
Of course not. Almost nothing is universal.
Almost not. It's just important to know.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct in mentioning that.
But yeah, for me, as like being in my 20s, that impulse is like nearly ever present.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the interesting thing too, is there's like many different people have many different levels of impulsivity when it comes to specific topics. All things, just like perspectives, just like truth, they're unique to us and our upbringing and our biological nature and all of these different things that make us us. You know, and part of those things is our impulses. You know what I mean? And those impulses then can manifest into all of these different things, like, you know, we were just discussing.
I was just thinking about this. The colloquial understanding of impulsive, if I said like somebody as like an adjective for a person, like that person is very impulsive.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is not
Yep.
ad break.
Yeah, ad break.
Honestly, money is a big engine of impulsivity, isn't it? You know, I could have the impulse to buy a piece of gum, but if I don't have the money to do it, then that impulse dies.
This guy. Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, ultimately speaking, like that's why they like. So, okay, this is an interesting thing you may or may not know. So you know when you're walking into when you've got what you're going to get at a store and you're going to go check out. You know when you're walking up to the register and and you have to walk through like almost a miniature aisle with a bunch of like magazines and all of those they almost always have like a miniature drink holder there so you can grab a cold drink while you wait.
Oh, I didn't know I was thirsty, but I guess I am.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as you're standing there, you have no choice but to stand there.
Yeah.
What they actually call those is they call those impulse items.
Yeah.
I'm not like, as the store, the guys who run the store, they order those things and they build those things specifically as what's considered an impulse aisle. Have you been to a fairly? I probably shouldn't drop a direct name of a corporation. However, there's an interesting one that starts with a big R. And they sell a bunch of clothes that are out of season now or misprinted.
Okay.
It rhymes with toss. When you go in there,
I wonder
who could that possibly? I don't know. It's a brain. It's definitely a brain teaser. So when you walk into that store, if you have been there anytime in the last, I don't know, 5 years, and you grab what you're going to grab and you go to walk out the store to pay for your thing, you have to walk to a giant S pattern impulse bin.
It's not a line.
Yes.
It's the freaking snake.
It is I would love to say labyrinth just because it's a great word, but it's totally like they corral you through this. They basically make everybody get into one line and then walk really slowly through this massively long S patterned impulse aisle, hoping that you'll buy all of these things they want to get rid of as soon as possible on clearance.
Yeah.
And it's that right there.
It's good marketing. That's what it is.
You're not wrong. I mean, I wouldn't call it marketing. I would say it's an excellent business strategy to get rid of products quickly. You don't really have a choice, and it's all like, if you notice, it's almost always like food items. Because you're sitting there and you're like, and this, and so what they're doing is that's a corporation preying on your impulsivity. See, they know that you're going to walk in there and they know that you're going to have to wait in line. So now they're turning that time that you're waiting into line. And in my opinion, even though I agree it is an excellent business strategy, I also think it's a little bit predatory.
Well, if we think about it like they're players in this game of money. We're players just like they are. And this is a strategy that they use to win.
You're not wrong. I mean, this is the thing. Is like if you go to if you're there's a reason why a sweaty Coke can that's all frosty looking and it's got those beads of water running down it. You're like, oh man, I'm thirsty now. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh shit! Like, really, refreshing beverage, yes please. Gulp.
I just want those beads of water.
Right?
Give it to me, and I'll.
So like, this is the thing is like that's meant to spark that impulsive like, oh man, that looks so refreshing. Now you have the impulsive drink. You're not thirsty. You're not like, and let's face it, soda pop is not something that's thirst quenching. Like, I mean, it maybe temporarily make you think that you're less thirsty because you had consumed the thing. So you're like, oh, I had an impulse. Now I've drinking the pop. Now the pop is drinking, the impulse has been satiated, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, all you've done is put a bunch of stuff in your body that is like literally going to make you more thirsty. Every single thing in the soda can is going to make you more thirsty.
Except
Generally
for the
speaking,
water that's involved in it.
I mean,
there's more stuff that makes you dehydrated
I
in it
forget
than
the
is
I
water.
forget the exact numbers.
Hmm.
We could look it up later, but it's like something crazy. Like you got to drink like 2 or 3 times the amount of water as the amount of soda pop that you drank just to break even.
Oh,
So
nice.
so so to totally process a can of soda, you
Hmm.
would need 2 to 3 cans of water.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, let me just
So
drink
like
4 cans of drink every time I drink a drink.
right. So totally. I mean, as I sip soda, I mean, I get it. Like you know, I do, you know, like
Hmm.
impulsivity, as much as we want to pretend like it's this thing that we could ever conquer, it's in reality, it's a part of us. Every one of us is impulsive. Every
Yeah.
one of us
It's inevitable. Impulses are
we
inevitable.
are humans, and part
Yeah.
of being human is these impulses, and some of these impulses are incredibly conductive to life
Hmm.
and happiness and joy,
Yeah.
and some of these are less so. Some of these are more, more lead to like strife and pain and
Another
anxiety,
another division would be, some of them originate from ourselves and others originate from the outside. Just like
Sure,
comparing you know, the food impulse to the impulse to drink a can of Coke. You
sure,
know,
sure.
we don't actually care about the Coke biologically,
Yeah.
physiologically.
But it tricks us into thinking that it's like a biological imperative due to thirst,
Yeah.
which is actually a biological imperative. That
Hmm.
is not an impulse. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like to drink water is not impulsive. You don't impulsively be like, I need water. No, no, no. Your body's like, I'm thirsty. You start having physical manifestations of thirst, like your mouth starts getting parched. You're like, I feel like I've chewed on sand. Like suddenly there's like, or like you're hungry, like, oh man, my stomach actually is starting to make weird gurgling noises and
Yeah, there's
has a
physical
yeah,
manifestations of my
physical
hunger.
a biometric feedback from your stomach being like, this is what hunger feels like, and you're
Yeah.
like, I will respond to that. That's not impulsive. That is
No.
that you're not having an impulse to eat sometimes.
What is an impulse is if you have a bottle of water in your hand and you unconsciously sip on it. That would be an impulse.
Sure.
You're like, or you have like your fork in your hand, and you're like talking to somebody, and you shove some food in your mouth. Impulse.
Sure. Like, yeah, I mean, you're sitting down to eat, but then like I don't know that I would say you're like impulsively sipping or that you were impulsively. I don't think that
I'm just recognizing it as an impulse, but not impulsive in the way that we colloquially understand it.
I hear you.
You know.
I think that there's a real fine,
Hmm.
real gauze like.
That's where I'm pulling towards, or
I
at least
feel
what
you.
I'm pointing at is
Yeah,
that line.
what's your point? You're pointing in the right direction, absolutely. But the simile you use doesn't quite add up. So it's more like I hear I hear what you're going for, which
Hmm.
is more like you're sitting down to eat some food, and you're like eating some food and it's good, and then like when you're done on your way out, you like grab a Snickers bar.
Yeah.
You're not hungry. You're just grabbing the Snickers bar on the way out impulsively because you just want some candy for no fucking reason.
Hmm.
You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? That's an impulse as regards to like a food thing goes. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
just ate some food. Like you don't need more food. You just had plenty of food. But you
Hmm.
still on your way out, you grab a dessert or you grab a little, you grab a drink to go or something like that. Or you grab some fucking coffee. You don't need any of that stuff, but you're still grabbing it impulsively. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Which is one of the impulses that we
Which I believe was what you were trying to point out earlier. Sorry, please
totally.
continue.
That is totally the point I was making. And when we talk about like conquering our impulsivity, I think that's what people are talking about. People are talking about those impulses that have the effect of something that we would consider negative.
Yeah.
Whereas, like,
Yeah, so you were talking about earlier, like, oh, that person's really impulsive. Well, you would only notice that if their impulses were having having an
right,
adverse or negative effect on you or the people around them.
if you notice that they
Confirmed.
impulsively give money to homeless people a lot, you're
You
not gonna say,
probably
"Oh,
won't be
that
like, oh, what a
person's
compulsive
impulsive."
person. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, every time that person sees. But I mean, this is the thing too, is you also wander from the realm of like normal impulses, like, grabbing a candy bar or a
Mm-hmm.
bag of chips or like something like we have just been talking about a whole bunch. But there's other things that are super like destructive impulses,
Mm-hmm.
as well as you have stuff that leaves this realm when you start talking. I'm sorry, not leaves the
Oh,
realm
that sounds so.
leaves the realm. But there's also another realm to consider, and that realm is the realm um, of mental disorder that manifests through these impulses, where it's no longer as simple as the things we were just talking about. It
Oh
takes
yeah,
on a
yeah.
whole secondary thing because it's no longer about, even though it's the same thing. Because, oh, this is an impulse. What they're doing is an impulse as well. Like let's talk about trichotomy. I'm sorry. It's the thing where you pull your hair out. It's where you just
Oh,
you
okay.
just
I
pull
wasn't.
one hair out at a time. Every once in a while, you just go up there and you just pull one hair out. It's a rough one, but I mean, this is why I'm bringing it up, okay? Because this is an impulsive, but it's also like a form of obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah.
See, so this what we're talking about is a mental disorder that manifests in these things that, if they were not a manifestation of a mental disorder, it would be very normal. But because it is a manifestation of a mental disorder, it's very, very, very different. You see? Because
Yeah.
me or you, like, we probably don't because there's a certain amount of like grooming that makes sense. We cut our hair.
Yeah. Totally.
But like grabbing one hair individually and pulling it out over time, you know what I'm saying? Like that's something where that impulse is obviously having a detrimental effect, and so should probably be addressed in a way that's a little bit more like important. Like, this is something that's an important realization versus a less important impulse, like
Yeah.
grabbing a candy bar, once
Hmm.
a week when you swing through to grab your weekly food at whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I just look at what Webster had to say about the difference between impulse and compulse,
Oh,
and
interesting.
Webster tells us that um, compulsion is basically a more intense version of an impulse. Like impulse is like
Almost like an undeniable impulse.
exactly undeniable. Yeah, it's like you must, because if you
You must comply with this demand.
if the government compels you to pay $300, then you have to do that, or there are more repercussions. Or if like you have the compulsion to pull your hair out, then there may be physiological or psychological repercussions that happen.
More like that is the repercussion of the mental disorder. See, the mental
Oh
that
yeah,
is
yeah.
the that is the physical manifestation
Hmm.
of that. What I can almost, I want to call it a tick, but I know that that's not entirely accurate. So we'll just keep on using the other terminology, which we already used.
Yeah.
But like, okay, so like the human is pulling one hair at a time, but not be, that's the reaction. The impulse is the manifestation of the internal struggle that they're going through.
Hmm.
See, and then that manifests in this hair pulling out. You
Hmm.
see,
Yeah.
in the compulsion.
Which is that a
Or
specific?
that is a compulsion. And like you said, because that is a compulsion, which is just an undeniable impulse.
Yeah.
Whereas when it isn't undeniable, it is simply an impulse. But when it becomes that next thing, that's when that becomes, when left unrecognized, can be a tall tale sign of mental dis-ease, mental
Yeah.
disorder.
And in fact, when we define disorders, we define them as like because like something isn't a disorder unless it's messing up your life.
Yeah.
You know, you collect soda cans. Sure, that's fine. You're a collector of soda cans, but you collect so many soda cans you like can't make it to your bathroom. Now it's a disorder.
Yeah, where it crosses the what you're talking about is another famous show. I really don't know how that thing works, whether you can say a show, but it's a show where, like, people have giant hordes of things in their home,
I think I know this one.
right?
Where they keep a lot of stuff. Sometimes it's
And
like valuable things.
I was
Other
about to say
times
that.
it's not.
That's exactly my point. Is sometimes where it almost always it begins. Or I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't make generalizations. Let's just say on this show, some of the folks are like, you can tell that it started as an actual collection. Like this guy that I remembered had a whole bunch of tribal masks, and he had this thing that was like a room that had a whole bunch of like um Eastern Asian influenced
Yeah,
art.
there's like a vague organization
Yeah,
to
and
it.
you can tell that it started out as like, oh, this guy was just a collector of neat looking stuff.
Yeah.
But then over time, that desire to just, oh, I impulsively want this thing. Like, oh, hey, this is a neat thing. I want this thing. It goes with the things in my house. And so they grab it, and pretty soon that stops being an impulse
and turns
and
into
starts
a compulsion.
and starts becoming a compulsion, and that's where a collector
Yeah.
crosses the realm into a hoarder. And then once you have a person who has a vast hoard, or once that collection starts getting too large to manage and they cannot overcome that mismanagement, to where it becomes a hoard.
Yeah.
And people start getting sick, and there's rats and mice, or people, which is really the number one concern. The number two concern is that you fall over and EMTs can't come or go from your house.
Yeah.
Which is really scary. And those are really the two big ones, other than the fact that it's really, really sad. But those two other things, people can die from that. And that to me makes it a really important kind of highlight.
Concern. Yeah.
Is like, yeah, when people can die from the thing, this is when it becomes the most important to do a checks and balances.
Absolutely.
When it's like, okay, a disorder is that I pull my hair out, no one's dying. That sucks. And this person definitely, I would love for them to be able to get help. But like the amount of, like if I see someone that's in a hoarding situation where it could result in their death, I'm like, oh man, this is way more important that we have some kind of underpinned way to help this person make it through this very obviously difficult time for them.
Something that I like to do.
But all people should have this help, bro. I wish I wouldn't have to quantify it. I wish that all people could just get the mental help that they needed when they needed it. I wish there wasn't a checks and balances. I wish that, like, if you needed mental help, you could just go to a mental health professional and get mental help.
Yeah.
Like, why is this so fucking hard? Sorry. Let's stop there. That's a whole nother can of worms that I could freak out on.
Yeah.
Next topic. Or I'm sorry, continuation with topic before I totally just buried myself in a hole of feelings. Don't mind me. Get really dark for a second there, bro.
It could be, I mean, this is something that I like to do. I like to kind of be my own case study, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like
me too.
Like okay, so
it's because we know ourselves pretty well, right?
Yeah, and like you don't need to ask somebody's observations about themselves.
You use your own.
If you're your own, yeah.
The only problem with that is that unfortunately we can't always tell the forest from the trees. So sometimes we can only always work from the point where we're at.
Yeah.
So please do your best. Please continue. Sorry
here's
to
how
derail.
we do a case study of impulse. For me, it was caffeine, just because caffeine's easy, but you can do it with anything really. Especially if it's something that you don't have an impulse for already. Like I quit caffeine. I quit drinking caffeine for 2 years. Had no real urge to drink caffeine until recently. I've been working a whole lot more, so I'm like, hey, caffeine, sharpen the brain. And so I decided to take that opportunity to study the building of the impulse to drink the caffeine over time. And that has been really interesting because from the beginning, from the very start of the impulse, I have been analyzing it. And every time I drink my cup of caffeine afterwards, I'm kind of cataloging how it feels. It's interesting to feel the impulse build, and then
to where, and by that you mean like, oh, I want a cup of tea.
Yeah, and that want gets larger or smaller over time, or different at
Depending
different
on how
points.
often you indulge it.
Yeah.
Thus practice.
What time I drink the caffeine is very
Sure.
important. You know, I'm like, oh, I'm feeling the urge. And the funny thing is, Brady's impatient. Brady's impatient. Brady knows that 12 o'clock is when I drink my caffeine. And so it's like, caffeine at 11:30. No, we wait till 12. And
That's right. That's impulse control.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it takes. That's the practice.
That's right.
You know, because even though I'm practicing with the impulse of caffeine,
That applies to all.
that applies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Practicing. Now, there are different levels of impulse as far as like how deep set they are. And you kind of realize that like, the more that we have practiced something, the deeper that it is ingrained in us, the more difficult it is to extract and or to fix or to correct becomes much more difficult. So you have to realize that going in, that if you're going to walk in on something like you said, you stopped, messing with caffeine. So now the impulses are rather low.
Yeah.
So they're easier to cope with. You can mess with them. You can slide that slider because they're a new impulse.
Yeah.
Whereas an older impulse, much more difficult to tackle. You know what I'm saying? When I guess I should use myself as an example, like you said, because it's the easiest to analyze oneself. Like for me, the impulse I got nothing.
Well, I mean, caffeine for sure, but
no, well, I don't have an impulse to drink caffeine. I wake up and I drink caffeine. It's a ritual. It's not an impulse.
Okay.
I do the thing every day the exact same, and it becomes a pattern. And that because I'm a special and unique bear. So I don't know how this quantifies for others. All I know for sure is that there are some things that I would for myself that I would consider more of a ritual than it is an impulse, like my morning cup of Joe, my morning in general. When I wake up, I do the same thing every morning. I wake up. I can tell you about it.
Would you say that you have to drink your caffeine in the morning? Your cup of coffee?
This is interesting.
Do you
right?
have to perform your ritual?
I would actually say no. And this is how I know, okay? Is because about a week and a half ago, I woke up in the morning and I went out and okay, so I got to tell you about the ritual before I can tell you how the ritual altered, right?
Right.
Okay. So I wake up and this is my morning ritual, okay?
Okay.
I wake up, I go back to sleep. I wake up and then I go back to sleep. And then I wake up and then I can't go back to sleep anymore. Okay? I get up, I walk out to the kitchen, I fill up my water boiler, and I rinse out my French press, right? After we rinse it, and then from there, I put the coffee into the French press, and then I walk out and I light my morning smoke. And then that's about the time that it takes for the water to boil. I come back in, I pour the water into the stuff, I go back into the bedroom, and I start up my computer so that I can get my morning video game on. About the time that I can get everything loaded onto the video game, it's been about 2.5 minutes, which is how long you should be steeping your French press for. I come back out here and I pour myself my cup of Joe. And then I go back in there and I sit down and I engage in video games. That's my morning ritual every morning. This is
I can hear Mozart playing in the background.
That's right. It's a beautiful process. Yeah. I've been honing it for years.
Yeah.
So
it may be shared by many people.
So interesting. About a week and a half ago, I woke up and I went out there and I lit my cigarette and I took one drag off of it and I was like, oh, this is fucking gross. And I put it out and I came back in here and I boiled my water and then I went back into my bedroom and I sat down and I turned on my video games and I played video games. That's it. No coffee. And I realized like 2 hours later, I was like, where's my coffee? What in the fuck? Did I forget my coffee this morning?
That's funny.
And I did. I just completely space cadetted my coffee, which is a thing that I've been doing every single morning for fucking years. unfailingly.
I
And yet just
wonder.
one day I just wake up and I just no coffee today. Fuck it.
uh,
And another time, now get this, is because like
uh,
people are like, oh, well, you're addicted to caffeine, blah, blah, blah. The other, now get this, right? I accidentally, unbeknownst to me, bought decaffeinated coffee from the corner mart because I only go into town to buy groceries once a month.
hmm
Because so I can go into the less expensive places in town and get groceries for less expensive versus
Right.
going, unfortunately, like locally, I buy my produce locally
hmm
so that I can, support local produce, which I really like to do. But like, and this way I can get my produce fresh just from the corner store.
Right.
Anyways, I
Yeah.
run out of coffee, right? So I go up to the corner store, I grab one of their coffee things, I take it home, I get down and like, I go to like, I finally get the coffee and I bring my next coffee home, I set it down and I go to throw the bag away and I look down and it says caffeine free. I hadn't even noticed.
You weren't like, oh man, I need another cup.
Yeah, no, there was absolutely no change in the ritual.
Yeah.
So I'm not even necessarily sure that the caffeine in the cup of coffee actually does almost anything really for me anymore because I drink like a 24 ounce cup of coffee every morning.
Here's
Like
my theory. I think that since the ritual was broken in one place, like the whole thing is considered one big ritual within the scope of your mind. Right?
Oh, so you're trying to say that because of the fact that the coffee itself was different, that I probably didn't even register the lack of caffeine because I was like, oh, this is just different coffee. This is different ritual.
Actually, I
Different
was talking
flavor.
more about the cigarette. You like went out to smoke the cigarette and you're like, this is gross, put it out. That like broke.
Oh,
That
you were
broke the
talking. We're
ritual.
not. I thought you were talking about the no caffeine thing.
No,
But you're
yeah,
talking about the original thing. Yeah, you were talking about the ritual was broken when I had the one smoke off the cigarette,
and you're like,
and then I
love
didn't
this.
go back for the cup of coffee
Yeah.
because the ritual was broken. Interesting. Very possible.
And
very, very possible.
The decaf thing does point to the fact that the caffeine most likely only serves to bolster the ritual,
Yeah.
but isn't like fundamental.
Correct.
You know,
Yep.
it's more about it. The ritual is probably more about the nicotine
Yeah.
and the flavor of
Sure.
the coffee.
Sure. Yeah. Those two things combined.
hmm